Chapter 10:10. It seemed that the situation was slipping in an unknown direction. Luonan felt baffled when faced with this kind of blood demon. If it weren't for the fact that the other party appeared to be reserved on the surface, Luonan would have suspected that he had encountered a shoddy salesperson. Luonan expressed very politely, "Apologies. I don't quite understand. I was too excited. I didn't explain clearly." Blood Demon didn't come over to ask Luonan to sign his name. Seeing that Luonan didn't refuse immediately, he maintained his cordial attitude and dragged Luonan to a seat by the street. They both sat down, then he politely inquired, "What do you want to drink?" "Water is fine." It just so happened to replenish his water vapor body. He had shaken hands with Blood Demon just now, and his body had been burned by his exuberant blood energy. There was some damage to his body's structure. This couldn't be hidden from others. But neither Luonan nor Blood Demon cared about this. After the necessary pleasantries were over, Blood Demon began to lead the matter to the main topic. "Brother Luo, it's like this. Calling you brother should be very appropriate." Luonan had to give a bit of face to an extraordinary who took the initiative to express goodwill, regardless of whether it was true or false. Luonan found it hard to refuse, so he laughed and returned to being the introverted boy he was more familiar with. He wanted to see what sort of tricks this fellow with a belly full of desire to show off was up to. Blood Demon had the posture of having a long talk today. "Let's go through things from the beginning. Let me first ask you, brother. Do you know about the matter of me investing money to purchase Cards magazine?" Luonan responded honestly, "I heard about it. I just heard about it last night." "Yeah. It's just something that happened in the past 2 days." Blood Demon grinned. "Actually, with your personality, I'm quite surprised that you know about this sort of senseless tidbit." Luonan really didn't know how to respond to Blood Demon's evaluation of the news that concerned him. Blood Demon seemed to be able to sense Luonan's thoughts. He laughed in an even more exaggerated manner. "I bought it for fun in the first place. I'm happy and I can make everyone laugh. Of course, that's even better. If brother knows about this matter, then you should understand what Cards magazine does." "Yes. It's probably a ranking for extraordinaries. More or less. More or less." Blood Demon raised a finger. "Speaking of rankings, do you know, brother? I'm just worried that you have a misconception." Luonan just felt that Blood Demon's thoughts were very free. Blood Demon said, "I know you haven't been in this circle for long. But from the very beginning the level of contact was very high. Recently he had been dealing with Ouyang, the martial emperor, the true god, and Abner. Some time ago there was also Gongqi and Jintong. Oh, there were too many of them. How should I put it? Let me be more straightforward. Young people always look at things in black and white. If you're not a friend, then you're an enemy. Of course, you've really risen too quickly. Some of the older guys don't even have the time to adjust their attitudes. A second ago they looked like they could do whatever they wanted, but in the blink of an eye, they're about to clash. This kind of embarrassing feeling is really embarrassing, you know? So, you have friends and most of them are kind to you from the beginning. But there are many enemies and they are often extreme. You see, Blood Demon's language was extremely exaggerated, but it was very picturesque. Luonan unconsciously associated it with a few people and a few things. Although Blood Demon acted like an old man and called him a young man, Luonan didn't feel annoyed. It was probably because of the novelty. Very few people said these things to him face to face. Especially when it came from the mouth of an extraordinary. To a certain degree it was more authoritative than the analysis of intelligence agencies. Listening to these kinds of evaluations could be considered a kind of correction. Luonan nodded. "Quite accurate. Of course. I have a way of judging people." Blood Demon's smile never stopped. He waved his hand. "I'm not analyzing your character. Actually, I really don't believe this. Young people change very quickly. You're only 17 this year, right? I'm 17 in June." Blood Demon's narration became even smoother after receiving Luonan's confirmation. "You see, life has just begun. When I was 17 I only knew how to hang out in nightclubs. What about you? You've entered this kaleidoscopic circle for less than a year. The inertia of your previous character is still in effect. The things you've been looking forward to all this time have yet to be accomplished. The explosive conflict hasn't ended yet. You don't even have the chance to breathe a sigh of relief. Just like this cup of fruit wine before me. The dregs haven't even settled yet. Who knows what the situation will be like in the future? You'll have to wait for a period of time. Maybe a year or two, maybe 3 or 5 years. Then you'll suddenly reach a period of peace. When that time comes, we'll definitely chat about different topics. Perhaps you'll be as unbearably vulgar as me. Perhaps you'll be even less popular than you are right now. But you'll definitely change greatly. This is because 1 year in this circle will have an effect on your previous circle of life for 5 years. Sooner or later, the traces of your previous life will be distorted and even melted away. I dare guarantee that. Luonan was deep in thought. Blood Demon suddenly slammed the table. We're off topic again. What were we talking about? We were talking about the rankings. We were talking about my misconception. That's right. Misconception. Blood Demon used a finger to poke at Luonan's chest. Brother, you've been up and down for over half a year. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the conflicts you've had with extraordinaries aren't just a few times. But you're a special case. Do you know that? Huh. I'm definitely a special case. Blood Demon's tone was extremely resolute. In the blink of an eye, he tossed out another question. According to what I know, your direct conflict with extraordinaries on the surface is probably with Jin Tong? Luonan chuckled, declining to comment. Blood Demon didn't mind. He continued, that was last winter. Looking back in time, do you know the last time there was a conflict on the level of extraordinaries? It was a huge fight, the kind that resulted in serious injuries and even deaths. Do you know when that was? Luonan had a bit of an impression of this person. I think it was Mr. Unchangeable Gold? That's him. That was a matter from 1993. What about before that? Luonan could only shake his head. Blood Demon began to count with his fingers. Going even further back was 91. The clown Rabi challenged High Lord Secret Contract to a duel. This was because of the large and small ghost cards that were suspended in the Cards magazine. This was also the time when the magazine was at its most glorious. Actually, there are quite a few things like ranking lists that involve us on this level. But only the Cards magazine has a bit of novelty. In addition to this glorious period of history I took aim at it this time. I plan on adding a bit more flavor to it. Going even further back was the latter half of the 90 year. Apollon lost to High Lord Secret Contract and signed his name. Otherwise, Old Man Secret Contract wouldn't have pulled Rabi out for a duel if he hadn't revealed his ability. Going even further back was the beginning of the same year. It was Nick that wastrel. He did things that angered even the heavens and the people. He was chased deep into the sea, not daring to come ashore for the rest of his life. Looking again. There's nothing left. Brother, take a look. More than half of the 90s have passed. There are only so many battles between extraordinaries that can be said to be true. Of course, these battles don't include those where both sides have misgivings about fighting. Don't you think that's very boring? Luonan really didn't think so. Blood Demon raised his eyebrows. This is the difference in our understanding. We can put it aside for now. The truth is that the 80 to 90 extraordinaries in the entire world have far too little direct communication with each other. Everyone is secretive. They look left and right. Even though they wish they could pull out the tendons and flay the skin of some people, they are always worried that the cranes and clams will fight, and the fishermen will benefit from it. All of them are very bashful. Of course, there are also the constant indoctrination of the Star Alliance Committee. They constantly pull the reins. Why do you think the Deep Blue platform suddenly entered actual combat at the end of the 90s? It's because they were frightened by the fight between Old Man Secret Contract and Apollon. You need to guard against the wilderness, but you need to guard against extraordinaries. Blood Demon was excited. He didn't give Luonan any room to interrupt. His mouth gushed without end. In this sort of situation, what do the vast majority of extraordinaries look at in terms of strength? They never look at each other's battle results. At most, they use the foundation of their basic realms to replace it with their battle results against mutants. Actually, if it's really just like this, then it's fine. Then you guys just put in Dongxing in the number 1 position under the heavens. But that fellow is just a 10 of spades. He almost didn't make it into the top 16. What's the reason? Because the ranking also takes into account the social status, academic achievements, political influence of the people on the ranking. So, Abner is the king of spades, Mao Jingye is the king of hearts, and Lanier is the king of clubs. Let's not even talk about the 4 from the 3 great orders. Luonan was already a bit strained. He knew of Dongxing because Baijian of City was a legendary character even in the secular world. An NPC character modeled after Dongxing existed in the 10 Days in the Wilderness. It wasn't a hero. It was a commander who issued daily missions. It was a very transcendent kind. As for Lanier, he seemed to be the number 2 figure of the Order of Justice. As for Apollon, Nick and Rabbi the Clown, Luonan only had a vague idea. Perhaps his best choice right now was to go online and look up the last issue of Cards magazine. Then again, these were just details that were unfriendly to those with obsessive-compulsive disorder. The true core content was Blood Demon's basic intentions. Though Blood Demon took a big detour, Luonan was still able to hear it. This bro simply wished for the whole world to be in chaos. He wanted to rely on the influence of Cards magazine to fan the flames among the various extraordinaries in the inner world. There was a certain concept in the inner world circles that equated extraordinaries with high-yield nuclear warheads. From Luonan's perspective, the theoretical destructive power of a nuclear warhead was certainly far greater than that of an extraordinaire if he were to use mathematical formulas to convert them. But on the plane of reality, he already had the right to speak about what an extraordinaire could do. 2 extraordinaries clashed head-on, especially in the form of a life-and-death contest, and the consequences that would occur were truly chilling to think about. If Blood Demon was in an ideal state, Luonan didn't want to think about it. He didn't want to help even if it was just to do some side work. He absolutely didn't want to. Mr. Blood Demon. Blood Demon raised his hands and pressed them down, interrupting Luonan's words. I understand what you want to say. It's most likely something along the lines of, those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. However, bro, please don't ruin the current atmosphere for now. Actually, I can be a bit more tactful. I can even not tell you. I can just discuss the contract as it is and discuss it as it is. But I still said it. This shows an attitude, a respect. I respect your status. I respect your intelligence. I respect your strength. I respect your strength. Let's lay everything out clearly. Business is business. In the end, we still need to return to the conditions. Blood Demon extended his hand as he spoke. He picked up the locked briefcase that he had placed to the side earlier and slapped it onto the table. Chapter 10:11. Luonan thought that he had encountered the classic treatment of smashing his face with a large sum of money in the movies. For a moment he really wanted to see the box open and see that it was full of cash. Oh, this was the era of authority. Hoping for a box of gold was more reliable. However, judging from the amount, it didn't seem like it. The Blood Demon did not beat around the bush anymore. Playing tricks on a master of mental sensing would only make him a laughing stock. He quickly opened the chest and turned the opening to Luonan's side. What Luonan saw at this moment was a neatly stacked pile. Black cloth. This kind of cloth looked quite high class. It was pure black and almost didn't reflect any light. However, upon closer inspection, there were some satin-like dense weave patterns. With such a material there should be some special processing. Luonan was certain that there were extremely restrained psychic waves within these layers of cloth. They curled up in an orderly manner. It was clear that this was a strange item that had undergone the blessing of extraordinary strength. In addition to the cloth, there was a slightly thick stylus in the upper layer of the lockbox, half of which was exposed. The body of the brush was jade white and covered with a cap. The texture was not bad, and there were also spiritual waves radiating from it, faintly resonating with the cloth. What is this? Luonan didn't know what this toy was, so he obviously wasn't tempted at all. He was just curious. The secret deed. It's a good thing that I got from High Lord's secret deed. It can carry extraordinary power. We can use it as the drawing paper and then use the H4, a organic powder that has the highest affinity with soul power to solidify and process it as the brush. Brother, are you not going to give it a try? Luonan laughed in spite of himself. It was obviously impossible for him to change his mind just because of this special material. However, he was not pretentious. He reached out and took the paintbrush. He weighed it in his hand and touched the secret deed book in the box. Although the name was quite scary, it still felt like cloth. Are you going to use this as playing cards? Even if the cloth could be cut, the material didn't seem to be the kind that could be opened and closed freely in one's hands, nor could it be swung around with a pa-pa sound. Just give it a try. You'll know once you try. The Blood Demon was quite an interesting guy when he did not intentionally reveal his nature of craving for the world to be in chaos. It was as if he was going to extort money at any moment. Luo Nan wasn't afraid of being blackmailed. Plus, his skin had grown thicker recently. If Blood Demon told him to try, he would try. First, he took off the cap of his pen and drew a few strokes on the table. He wanted to get a feel of what it felt like to have an affinity with soul energy. Then he took out a piece of cloth from the box and spread it out on the table. Then he pulled out a piece of cloth from the box and spread it out on the table. The Blood Demon was very attentively moving the cup and other miscellaneous items away to make space. The actions of the crowd was quite eye-catching. A few people were driven by curiosity and stopped to watch. Whether it was Luo Nan or Blood Demon, they both had temperaments that were immune to the influence of the outside world at any time. He even explained some background knowledge and basic usage of the skill. The spiritual waves of the painting brush and the secret contract have been specially adjusted. As long as you pour your soul energy into the painting brush, the two will be able to link and form all kinds of unimaginable effects. The Nan, Luo Deed Spirit, was Spirit. Spirit Nan. Demon Luo Nan really wanted to see what kind of toy he could make with the brush in his hand. From his perspective, the psychic wave link structure between the Nan and the secret deed was not rigorous enough, but it was nimble enough. It was as if the Nan had left some room for the writer at the very beginning of the design. When the writer's soul strength was added, the so-called three begets all things could indeed give rise to many possibilities. This sort of interactive design structure could be said to be quite brilliant. Luo Nan's hands began to itch. He began to select targets in his mind. Of course, he could not do as Blood Demon wished. He could filter out all the extraordinaries he knew and saw. Actually, the safest ones were still life paintings and landscape paintings. He wasn't good at them and he was too shameless. In the end, Luo Nan's shameless art had yet to reach great success. He suddenly smiled after a round of selection. The tip of the brush dropped down, and a white outline was drawn on this seemingly extremely soft cloth. Luo Nan was the first to say, "Not bad," after he truly began to draw. This sort of soft cloth was by no means an ideal drawing paper. Luo Nan's sketching technique had extremely high requirements for the fine details of the lines. If he were to draw the entire cloth with a single stroke, then there would be no need to say anything. But this sort of embarrassing thing didn't happen. Luo Nan didn't feel the softness and stiffness of the cloth at all. In fact, there was still an extremely small distance between the tip of his brush and the secret deed. The psychic waves were completely interacting with each other. They carried the tip of the brush as it wandered, leaving some leeway for it to be used. And the infusion of soul strength caused the feel of the brush to be strengthened. This was a bit different from drawing on paper as usual, but it was already very similar to the feeling of being in the virtual work area. As he cheered, Blood Demon raised an eyebrow to the side. Ox Demon. That's right. The target Luo Nan had casually drawn was none other than the Lord Dark Dragon God, who had been crying in snot on the deck of the yacht not too long ago. In the end, Luo Nan was a sincere person. He didn't expose his most shameful image, but with just a few strokes, the image of the ox with the head of a spider with the body of a bull leaped out to the surface. It appeared malevolent, yet it was low and crafty. It's not bad, right? Luo Nan was just experimenting. He sketched out a rough outline. It was enough for him to get the spirit. He put away his brush, finding it hard to conceal his anticipation. And then, Blood Demon chuckled and snapped his fingers. The black cloth on the table burst into flames out of thin air with a bang. The flames flourished, but they were extinguished in a flash. The heat wave caused the surrounding uninvited spectators to cry out in alarm and shrink back. Then everything returned to nothingness. There was only a card-like piece of cardboard that floated down slowly. Wow! Some of the spectators began to applaud. They clearly thought that this was a street magic show. But no matter what, it was impossible for the two magicians to continue performing. Luo Nan extended his hand and caught the fluttering piece of paper. This was a wide standard card with a size of 3 by 8 millimeters. It was a bit bigger than the cards he normally played. On the back of the card was an orderly pattern of unknown meaning. And on the front, the image of the ox demon that Luo Nan had just drawn had already shrunk to a size suitable for the face of the card. It lay there obediently. The surroundings seemed to ripple with watery light. The visual effect was pretty good, but the secret wasn't just in the visual aspect. As for what it was, Luo Nan had yet to see it. It was interesting just like this. Interesting. Luonan held the card in his hand. He was a bit reluctant to part with it for a time. Was this designed by the High Lord of Secret Contract? In any case, it's a special product of his order. Are you familiar with him? I found a total of 2 artists. One is you, Brother Luo. The other is him. Luonan was very surprised. The High Lord of Secret Contract supported Blood Demon's bullshit plan? Was Blood Demon boasting shamelessly? Or was that person plotting something through the secret contract and through this matter? Luonan thought for a bit, but he didn't delve any deeper. This was no longer his area of expertise. Since he couldn't figure it out, he simply tossed the card onto the table and laid his cards on the table. This is very interesting, but it's absolutely not a reason for me to participate. Blood Demon didn't care one bit. I understand. I don't expect to rely on this to convince you. However, I'm going to make a big move next. Oh. I'll say a keyword first. Cloak. Luonan raised his eyebrows. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he leaned his back against the back of the chair. His gaze swept past the magic card on the table before looking at Blood Demon. It was as if he was looking at Niu Gui's face, which had nearly collapsed into nothingness not too long ago. This caused Luonan's suddenly changed mood to ease a bit. Cloak. For me, this isn't a keyword. It's a sensitive word. The meaning behind it is extremely rich. There were some words that Luonan didn't need to say. He had a soul cloak. Recently, the clamor within the inner world had yet to die down. It was even directly related to the High Seas auction. It was the holy cloak of the Xieluo order. This was directly related to his grandfather. He remembered that his grandfather had once said a related word. Luonan had even heard similar concepts in the environment of the relay station. But no matter what the meaning was, no matter what level it was an offense to speak of it in a negotiating tone from the mouth of someone else. Luonan didn't hide anything. Mr. Blood Demon, I can tell you something in advance for the sake of maintaining a good atmosphere. I know a bit more about this than you can imagine. If we were to play riddles and play games to coax children, it would be hard for everyone to avoid awkwardness. Blood Demon grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. I can see that. That's why I'll say it up front. I respect you. I won't play any tricks. One is one. Brother Luo, you have to admit that you're interested in this keyword. We can continue to talk. I can also declare that I won't play the empty-handed trick of a white wolf. I won't use the asymmetry of information to win a temporary profit. In the future, I still need Brother Luo to constantly come up with maps. When the time comes, you can just randomly block me and get angry for no reason. That won't be good. Now, can we continue to talk? Luonan gestured with his hand, inviting Blood Demon to continue. Blood Demon didn't immediately speak. His finger lightly tapped the table twice and a projected area appeared. It was close to noon. Fortunately, the parasol blocked most of the dazzling sunlight. The secret deed book in the box also served as the background. Aside from being a bit hollow, the visual effect was all right. And so Luonan saw a rather casual recording in the middle of the projected area. This should have taken place in a rather dusky space. Shadows were everywhere, and it seemed that there wasn't just one person. And at the center of the focus of the image was a book that seemed to have been burned recently. It looked like some of it had already been burned. The outer cover was black and the entire book had become fluffy. The edges even carried some sparks that had yet to completely extinguish. No, this seemed to be... Luonan's gaze quickly streaked across Blood Demon's face. Blood Demon revealed a seemingly friendly smile, indicating for Luonan to continue watching. Luonan turned his gaze back to the projected area. At this moment, a hand reached out from the image and took the book from the previous owner. It casually patted away the remaining sparks on the burnt hardcover and seemed to have even blown at it. Then it flipped the book casually amidst the rising smoke and dust. The special structure of the book was incomplete, but it was enough to be recognized. Luonan looked at the edge of the damaged hardcover, and there was an iron binder that hadn't deformed yet. It wasn't a book. It was a split notebook. Chapter 10-12. Identifying the structure was easy, but the contents of the rapidly flipping pages were not something that a low-quality image could bear clearly. Luonan could only confirm that the contents were very, very sloppy. Many places were blank and there seemed to be very few words that were completely formed into strings. But in the end, the flipping of the notebook stopped at the first page. To be exact, it was the title page of the notebook. This was the first time that the relatively complete and clear contents appeared. The most important thing was that the contents were very familiar. It was a set of hand-drawn geometric figures. It was a combination of a tetrahedron, inscribed sphere and circumscribed sphere. And below this set of figures were 4 short sentences with a total of 16 words. Luonan would never forget even in death. My heart is a prison, my heart is a furnace. My heart is a mirror, my heart is a nation. These were the 16 words that Luonan had engraved into his soul ever since he was 10 years old, as well as the formatting theory diagrams for visualization. If one were to just look at these, the contents of each page of the notebook that Luonan kept at home would be practically identical. At most, the handwriting would be a bit sloppy. Actually, this wasn't the only thing. The most eye-piercing thing on the most recognizable page that Luonan had seen so far was the random scribbling on the page. There were some chaotic lines that had already been scratched on the page. At first glance, it seemed that they were seriously dissatisfied with the contents of the notebook, or perhaps they were purely venting their emotions. But Luonan already had a preconceived impression in his mind. He carefully distinguished them, and soon he discovered that these chaotic lines actually had a pattern. They were handwriting. It was just that the scribbling was messy and shaky, causing the words to only take shape. There were a total of 2 words. Cloak. Luonan tightly gripped the cup of water, not moving an inch. In his eyes, the fuzzy and messy lines seemed to possess their own life force. They shrieked as they struggled out from nothingness, distorting the words and figures on the title page. They were also like an electric current that pierced straight into his brain. Within the dark clouds of memories, countless familiar images were stimulated. It was like a thunderstorm rumbling through the depths of his mind. But in the end, the only thing that appeared clearly in Luonan's mind was a short remnant of a deranged image. It was the emaciated old man trapped in the ward. He waved his arm crazily, kicking over everything he could destroy. He howled hoarsely, "Let the flames burn. Burn through this cloak's darkness. The new god wants to step on the bones of the old god and ascend to the throne. Come, come, let's see who is the master of the universe." Luonan subconsciously reached out with his hand, wanting to support her, but the virtual image of his memories immediately shattered. The notebook that seemed to have just gone through a fire calamity lay before him. He wanted to touch it, but he ended up touching empty air. Luonan's movements froze and Blood Demon's voice rang out in a timely manner. "Don't be hasty. There's more to come." As he spoke, the person who took the notebook picked up the remaining black ash on the page and rubbed it with his fingertips. Then he raised his hand and walked out of the camera. No one knew what he was doing. At this time, Luonan's brain was finally able to diverge a bit in other directions. He was able to naturally discern from the performance of the camera that the fellow holding the notebook should be the videographer himself. And there should be a discussion going on here. But Luonan didn't hear it. "What about the sound?" "I'm sorry, I didn't." The Blood Demon shrugged. "I don't even know how many hands this thing has been in my possession. It's normal that it's been processed." As he spoke, Luonan saw from the videographer's first-person perspective that this fellow suddenly exerted strength. He tore off the leather packaging of the notebook in a very rough manner and opened the metal binder. Then he tossed these appendages to the side along with the title page. All that was left was the binder that had completely lost its binder. The image paused for a bit here. Perhaps it was the sound of another conversation that had been processed. But soon Luonan was able to guess the content of the conversation. This was because a cluster of red light lit up in the dusky room in the image at this time. It shot over from the side. It looked to be the low power state of a laser emitter. But to the fragile paper it was also a disaster. The red light cut through the darkness, passing through the already scattered pages. A ball of fire ignited within Luonan's virtual pupils. The binder was burned through by the flames brought by the laser, destroying at least a third of it. Luonan didn't know what the intentions of the people in the image were doing this, but his mood was terrible. Extremely terrible. Right at this moment, the Blood Demon suddenly spoke. Here comes the crucial part. The projected image seemed to tremble a bit just as Blood Demon finished speaking. The rays of light suddenly dimmed, and the flames on the burning binder were extinguished for some unknown reason. Luonan wasn't present and he didn't have the assistance of sound. He was completely unable to guess the reason. But at nearly the same time, the focused area of the camera suddenly made a large shift. It shifted from the damaged binder that flickered in brightness to the leather packaging that had just been tossed to the ground, as well as the title page that had been brought down. The dark red beam of light lit up once more, but this time it struck the title page on the ground. The problem was that the title page didn't immediately combust despite being made of the same material. There was just an additional moving speck of light on its surface, and the page was slightly scorched. The power of the laser emitter increased, and the page finally couldn't endure it any longer. A hole was burned through it, and the diagrams and words on the page began to be swallowed by the flames until they turned into ashes. The camera zoomed in. It was probably because the person recording wanted to grasp the uniqueness of this page a step further. But when the camera zoomed in halfway, there was another violent tremble. There seemed to be a turning motion as well. Just as the camera started to move, the field of view of the camera turned chaotic. It was as if the person recording had suffered an attack. Here. Blood Demon was like an incompetent commentator. He buzzed to the side. Luonan didn't need Blood Demon to explain. He was doing his best to distinguish the various elements within the terrible chaotic image. There was still some burning light within the violently shaking camera. Occasionally, Luonan could see the binder that had already scattered into the air. Once, twice. But when Luonan glanced at these binder pages for the third time, he suddenly discovered that these flying binder pages seemed to be dissolving. Even though the flames ignited by the laser had been inexplicably extinguished, these binder pages continued to rapidly disappear amidst the flickering light and shadow. It was as if they wanted to melt into the darkness that was becoming more and more dominant. This wasn't an isolated phenomenon. Instead, it was a consistent trend among all the binder pages that Luonan was spying on. This wasn't the end of it. There seemed to be a new element mixed into the chaotic scene. It was as if sand and dust had blown in. Fine and dense grains of sand had blown into the room by some unknown means. They struck the bodies of the people inside who were already in a sorry state. Then there was an instant of emptiness and a flower of blood that quickly filled in. This was a sandstorm? The video ended here. Luonan sat there like a statue. Blood Demon coughed. I heard that this video came from the hands of a fellow from your Xia city called the Horn Demon. Seems that you guys had a deal before? Horn Demon? Humans' thoughts were just this strange. They wouldn't be able to discover anything before they had a standard answer. Many things could be associated with a case. Luonan immediately felt that the person recording had made an action before. It was the action of picking up dust and raising his hand. Could it be that he placed the dust in his mouth and tasted it? Then wouldn't the location of the video just now be the Format 70 laboratory that was enveloped by the sandstorm of the mist labyrinth in some unknown corner of space? Was this the recording of the Horn Demon entering the laboratory for the first time? Luonan's lips twitched. He used this action to express his mood. It's very clear that he held back. This is indeed a pleasant surprise. I personally believe that this video is quite valuable. But it's very strange that the Horned Demon didn't hand it over to the Toyama auction house to verify the value of the auction item. Auction item. That's right. There's more than one notebook like this. Blood Demon winked at Luonan. It seems that the Horned Demon used an ordinary notebook to trick you? Whether it's ordinary or not, it's up to me to decide. But from his subjective wishes, it's like this. Luonan began to spit out fragrant words. That damned bastard. He's tight-lipped towards us. However, damned was quite appropriate right now. Blood Demon chuckled. Since you're interested, brother, I'll talk about some information and analysis of this notebook. First is the background. The Horned Demon entered the laboratory left behind by your grandfather in the wilderness and moved everything away. You certainly know about this matter. However, how he managed to get in will have to be linked to the keywords we've mentioned before. Cloak. It's the Holy Cloak. This is the so-called Holy Cloak of a small order in the wilderness. But no one knows what a cloak actually is. Perhaps, brother, you have an idea? You're talking about the evil Luo order? Luonan blurted out, but he swallowed the first word halfway out of his mouth. It was already very clear who the Luo in the evil Luo order was. Why did he have to pour dirty water on himself? Blood Demon raised his eyebrows once more. Sure enough, you know. Blood Demon's understanding of Luonan was a bit off. Actually, Luonan really didn't know what kind of holy cloak Wu Jun had. It was just that he had already deeply participated in the subsequent pursuit and excavation operations of the Horned Demon and the Amaterasu Order. He gave them a ruthless blow in passing. Before Luo Nan could figure out how to correct Blood Demon's misunderstanding, the latter came to a realization first. That can't be right. If you've always had a relationship with the Luo Order, how could the Horned Demon have it? It can only be after the event. Did the Amaterasu Order act in such a high-profile manner? Oh wait. Blood Demon seemed to have thought of something. This fellow's brain was too good. Luo Nan didn't want to give Blood Demon a chance to investigate further, at least not right now. He said bluntly, "Just talk about the notebook." Blood Demon grunted twice. He was a bit unwilling, so he could only reorganize his words. "Okay, since you understand the relevant background, let's get straight to the point. The Horned Demon discovered the entrance to the Wilderness Laboratory from the the Luo Order. At the time they were an expedition team, the kind that broke in. You understand? Perhaps Luo Yuan was also the source of information." Luo Nan held the cup of water and silently added in his mind. He suddenly became a bit distracted. In terms of information, Luo Yuan's role could only be more important. That fellow clearly knew the standard answer, yet he made the Horned Demon take a detour and use Wu Jun's Luo Order as a breakthrough point. In the end, the Amaterasu Order entered the scene, provoking a true god and the Pope. Chapter 10:13. Could it be that Luo Yuan and Wu Jun had an irreconcilable enmity? But with Luo Yuan's strength, annihilating a tiny Luo Order was as easy as flipping his hand. If he wanted to get rid of them, he would have gotten rid of them a long time ago. Why did he have to go around in circles? It didn't make sense. Luo Nan discovered that this problem was much more difficult than researching configuration and superconfiguration. Blood Demon continued, "I won't go into the middle of the process. In any case, they made a huge profit. When they began to deal with and divide the spoils, they discovered these special types among a large number of similar notebooks. Then you can see the result. It was an extremely bad experience." Luo Nan asked casually, "How bad was it?" Only one person from the first exploration team survived, and that was the Horned Demon. In any case, this is what he said. "Now there is no one. I can say this." In the end, Luo Nan didn't say this. He just sighed. "Notebooks are different from other notebooks." "Yeah. These notebooks are different from the other notebooks. Right now there are only 4 notebooks that I'm talking about." Blood Demon raised 4 fingers. The Horned Demon's shoddy experiment resulted in the complete destruction of one notebook, which is the one you see right now. Right now there are only 3 notebooks left. Having said this, Blood Demon discovered that the glass of water in front of Luo Nan was almost empty. He snapped his fingers, indicating for the waiter to come over and refill the glass. Luo Nan didn't care about outsiders. In any case, no ordinary person could understand these things. Will the remaining 3 notebooks be auctioned? There is only one definite information. What about the other 2? This is the core content of today's transaction. Blood Demon withdrew his 4 fingers and clenched them into a fist. But before Luo Nan's mood could clearly change, he revealed a huge smile. "But don't worry. I believe in your character. We can use an advance payment method. I'll tell you the whereabouts of one of the notebooks first. It's actually quite easy to guess." Blood Demon didn't wait for Luo Nan to express his agreement and openly announced the answer. The remaining 3 notebooks were taken out from the laboratory and sent to the Fuji Auction House headquarters in Bin City. One of them, has already followed the jadeite light to the Pacific Ocean. It's just waiting for tonight's auction. The other one has never left Bin City. The Amaterasu Order. It's easy to guess, right? As long as you have a clear understanding of the situation, you don't need to use your brain. Blood Demon was still suspicious of Luo Nan. He was deeply involved in this matter. Luo Nan was thinking, would the Horned Demon honestly hand over these special notebook pages to the Toyama auction house? He must have been sent to the Amaterasu Divine Court. Of course, this fellow Luo Yuan might have had a hand in the middle. Luo Nan couldn't make a judgment on whether the Horned Demon had a closer relationship with Luo Yuan or whether he obeyed the orders of the true god and the Pope. Blood Demon and Luo Nan were both thinking. They were both thinking a lot. They were both correcting their own viewpoints and opinions. The 2 of them looked at each other. Their thoughts cut in from different angles and converged at the same time. Looking at it this way, the chaos in Ban City didn't seem to be a simple and not too beautiful accident. At this moment, there was a tacit understanding between the two. Under such circumstances, communication was even more necessary. The blood demon continued. As far as I know, the true God and the Pope are very concerned about this item. They suspect that this is the key to sealing the secrets of your esteemed grandfather's laboratory. They want to conduct in-depth research on it. Should I thank them for valuing me? Brother, you can pay your respects to them in person. In any case, they are currently working on deciphering the secrets within the notebook. According to the intelligence I know, they have high hopes for this notebook. They even believe that it is the key to catalyzing the most perfect system of the Fusang Divine Tree Grand Divine Treasure. This name is too hard to pronounce. We are used to calling it the Sun Tree. The Sun Tree? Luo Nan smirked. Very straightforward. Their ambitions are even more straightforward. Blood Demon raised his cup and saluted the sun that had already risen to its zenith. The bald old man can still hold it in. That fellow, the true God, has clamored more than once. He wants to use this great tree constructed upon the grand divine treasure system to pave a stairway to true godhood. Oh my, he's surprisingly modest. Luo Nan didn't have a hint of mockery in his words. Instead, he was truly astonished. I thought he thought of himself as a god a long time ago. Blood Demon laughed heartily. We're all in the same circle. There's no need to expose each other's shortcomings. God. If a god was like that, I would be the first to cry out loud. Blood Demon drained the cup of fruit wine in one gulp as he chatted. Luo Nan didn't quite understand what Blood Demon meant. Blood Demon's interest was piqued. He gave a few more comments. Of the three great orders, only the Amaterasu order dares to boast shamelessly about themselves as gods. However, it seems that they're the only ones who have seriously delineated the system of gods. They've stuffed all the cats and dogs in Ban City into the system of the divine treasure. They're also a part of the Sun Tree. Let's not talk about anything else. Just by looking at their actions, they're a level stronger than Old Man Secret and that woman from the Order of Justice. In any case, this is what I believe. Luo Nan shrugged. He wasn't interested in continuing on this topic. Blood Demon quickly corrected himself. Don't you want to hear their analysis of these notebooks? This is a unique piece of information. Continue to use it as an advance payment. This sort of transaction will soon be impossible to see in today's world. Luo Nan pursed his lips. A second later, he gestured with his arm, inviting Blood Demon to continue. Blood Demon laughed even more happily. He knew that this transaction was about to be completed. The more it was like this, the more he needed to display his sincerity. First, let's talk about the notebooks themselves. According to the information, the contents of these notebooks aren't continuous. Instead, they're a sort of integrated product. Blood Demon rewound the recording to the time when the Horned Demon flipped the pages. He indicated for Luo Nan to look at it. You understand? Fragmented notebooks are loose sheets. They can be pulled out and put in at any time. Adjusting the order and even adjusting the stored notebooks isn't a problem. The researchers believe that these 4 notebooks are very likely to have been pulled out and put together from the large amount of notebooks accumulated by Mr. Luo Yuandao, your grandfather, over the course of several decades. There's extremely clear evidence for this. Right now we can see a few things from this crappy quality. The degree of age of these loose sheets isn't consistent. Luo Nan still didn't speak, but his silence was tantamount to agreement. The information I know doesn't show what sort of standards were used to select the loose sheets that were pulled out and put back together. Perhaps they haven't researched it yet. Perhaps they've researched it but they're keeping it a secret. Blood Demon continued to poke at the blurry scene in the recording. I can see that the contents inside are extremely messy. It's not that the order is messy. Rather, the contents recorded on each page and even the state of the person who recorded it at the time are all extremely messy. You should be able to accept this, right? Luo Nan's face was expressionless. He used the calm attitude of a researcher to explain. My grandfather's mental state has indeed been terrible since the later stages of the wilderness. The information also shows that the vast majority of these drawn-out pages are works from the late 70s and early 80s. Looking at it from the most reasonable and ordinary perspective, perhaps it was Mr. Luo Yuandao or someone else. Perhaps it was your father or your mother. They felt that these records in a deranged state were meaningless, so they were specifically drawn out to avoid interfering with the normal contents of the notebooks. As for these notebooks, are they a collection of mementos? Is that possible? However, it seems to be more interesting to consider it from the perspective of people like us. And that is that these loose sheets themselves are special. Luo Nan's hand unconsciously spun the cup of water. He looked at the scene below Blood Demon's finger and muttered, "Special? At the very least, the title page is special." Blood Demon had unconsciously mixed in his own judgment. You should have seen it earlier. When the title page was still there, the entire notebook was quite resistant to heat. At the very least, it was able to automatically reduce the damage. It was like some sort of protective mechanism. However, after the title page was destroyed, the notebook instantly went out of control. It was out of control. That's right. It was out of control. Luo Nan's fingers unconsciously flipped the cup of water. His speed was not fast and the purified water inside was 80% full. It was clearly still tumbling and shaking, but not a single drop spilled out. The recording entered an unbearably chaotic period for the second time. Blood Demon clicked his tongue twice. Looking at this scene, can you be certain that this is protection? Or is it some sort of seal? There seems to be something incredible hidden within those loose sheets. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. Brother Luo, a considerable portion of my inspiration for asking you to make cards and paint came from this. Luo Nan raised his head to glance at Blood Demon. He did not respond. He just continued to flip the cup of water, displaying his magic-like control technique. Blood Demon did not care. He continued to speak. According to what I know, brother, your grandfather, Mr. Luo Yuandao, doesn't possess extraordinary strength in the standard sense. Whether this is an unintentional influence or a deliberate action needs to be analyzed. But if it's the latter, then he has displayed a rather superb secret technique here. Were so many people blind in the past? They actually didn't discover it? Who knows? Luo Nan responded with one sentence at a time. At the very least, you as his direct grandson don't know. Blood Demon grinned. Of course, if it weren't for your existence, if it weren't for the miracles you've created in these short few months, the influence and momentum you've formed, no one would pay attention to the abandoned laboratory in the wilderness. No one would conduct research on these things. These notebooks would most likely continue to be buried. Even if they were discovered, they wouldn't overinterpret it. So, brother, this matter started with you. I don't know how many people want to find answers from you. Oh, there are far too many people like this. Compared to the special notebook his grandfather had left in the wilderness, the groundless new plane certainly possessed a more direct and intense stimulation. Luo Nan was no longer worried when he was in too much debt. He didn't care. On the other hand, these special notebooks that had wandered about outside stimulated Luo Nan directly and intensely. The point of entry that Blood Demon chose was truly F***King accurate. Chapter 10:14. At Luo Nan's level, his understanding of the Heaven Abyss civilization continued to deepen. The possibility of him making a shocking discovery from the notes his grandfather left behind in the wilderness wasn't high. Luo Nan just found it hard to accept. This was clearly the result of his grandfather's work. Why was it that he had to be unearthed, tormented, and destroyed by others before he could learn of it? Was it because he was too easy to bully? Blood Demon continued to reinforce Luo Nan's thoughts. Many people will be interested in this. This recording is still circulating in a small circle right now. But a few hours later there will certainly be changes. As for after the auction. Oh, maybe there will be a whole new treasure hunt. Actually, the Amaterasu Order has already been making continuous preparations for this matter. They are even willing to pay a little bit of a price. Aside from their own deciphering, I heard that they have already begun to recruit external personnel, especially psychics of the extraordinary level. This was a sensitive word. Luo Nan shot a glance. Psychics? Some things can't be researched conventionally. Psychics. Isn't it quite like the inner world? Blood Demon spread his hands. Relax. They definitely won't invite you. There are very few psychics in this world, but the proportion of extraordinaries isn't small. The topic slowly expanded. Luo Nan needed to organize his thoughts a bit, but at the same time he hoped to obtain more information. He began to look seriously at Blood Demon. There was no need to say anything. This was an extremely straightforward expression. Blood Demon raised another 4 fingers. At present, there are 52 extraordinaries listed in the card deck. Among them there are 4 psychics. That's more than 7% of the total. If we only consider the mental side, it jumps to more than 15%. Furthermore, they are all very powerful fellows. Of course, they might not be able to invite true gods. Let's analyze them one by one. Apollon. Apparently, Old Man's secret deeds spat out a few mouthfuls of blood when he subdued him. But he's still a traitor who doesn't listen to orders. He built an independent city in the wilderness. No one can order him around. Yeah, I think true gods and the Pope won't be able to invite this fellow. Luo Nan heard Blood Demon say Apollon twice. More information was dug out from the depths of his memories. Ha City. Armageddon? That's right. It's the only city among the 88 major cities that doesn't have a garrison of the Star Alliance Committee. It doesn't have any government officials. It only has the will of an individual. Oh, that's really unlikely. That's right. Let's talk about the next one, the dead witch. That witch. You can ignore the rest. I know that. Bu City's shaman, a very powerful old lady. This is what old you said. It seems that in this domain she can be said to be the strongest in the world. Not bad, but her body is weak and she usually doesn't go out, so the possibility of inviting her is not high. But that old woman has a strange temper, who knows what she's thinking. Next is the top 6. This bro is young and energetic and he's a research type. Maybe he'll be interested in this. However, he's in Baijan's right-hand man, and most of his energy is focused on the northern defense line. It's unlikely that he would go to Ban City and risk offending you. Finally, there's Mola. A super talented troublesome woman. If it weren't for you, she would have enjoyed the world record of being the first to become an extraordinary for a very long time. In my opinion, she is the most likely candidate in this matter. Luo Nen frowned. He had only heard about Mola from a friend in Xia City last night. It seemed that Octopus was quite obsessed with her. She's extravagant and wasteful. Her expenses are huge and she often gets hired to do dirty work to earn money. As long as the price is right, she's not afraid of doing things wrong. Plus, I have exclusive news. This woman was in T-City 2 days ago. It seems that she wanted to join in the excitement of the auction. But yesterday she went in the direction of the old continent. She said that she was visiting relatives, but who knows the specifics. Luo Nan spun the cup of water as he went over the names of the 4 extraordinary psychics in his mind. He still had the same problem. His understanding of these people was far too lacking. Similarly lacking was the way the Amaterasu order did things. So far, it was practically Blood Demon's side of the story. If he hadn't made some moves earlier, he would be no different from a marionette today. This had nothing to do with trust. It was just a matter of taking the initiative. After thinking for a few seconds, Luo Nan lowered his head and laughed. Maybe they want to beg me. Didn't they transfer this information to me? Blood Demon spread his hands. Your way of thinking is quite peculiar. Then what am I in this? I'm not doubting you. Luo Nan finally put down the cup. But doing research, whether it's intentional or not, can no longer be done by shutting yourself off and building cars. Multi-party cooperation is one way and competition in scientific research is another. But sooner or later the results must be shared. It's just that not every contributor can live to enjoy the benefits of the results. Blood Demon was startled for half a second before he laughed out loud. You're a professional in this field. Luo Nan shook his head before Blood Demon could finish speaking. I'm just guessing. You just said that there are only 3 of these special notebooks left. I believe that they were all controlled by the Amaterasu order. Am I right? Blood Demon chuckled at Luo Nan's complete ignorance of the Fuji auction house. It's quite realistic. The Amaterasu order left one for their own research. They threw one into the high seas auction. No matter who gets it, they will conduct research. I feel that my chances of getting it are quite high. Tiski. They're determined to get it. Yeah. They don't hesitate to kill and rob, Luo Nan replied jokingly. Blood Demon let out a whistle. That's at least 2 research teams. Then there's one more. Luo Nan's voice suddenly cut off. He went back into a contemplative state. A full half a minute passed before he raised his head. His gaze looked straight at Blood Demon. Did you send the last one to Li Wei? Blood Demon raised his eyebrows twice. Brother Luo, it'll be hard for us to verify the price later if you do this. This was no different from admitting to it. Blood Demon wasn't someone who couldn't afford to lose. He grumbled and immediately satisfied his own curiosity. Brother, did you guess this by force? There's probably no one more powerful than Li Wei's Tianqi and Deep Blue Laboratory when it comes to research on supernatural powers. And the Amaterasu Order seems to have a good relationship with them? Of course, they're the best choice if you want to obtain research results faster. Blood Demon clapped his hands lightly. Sure enough, young people have good brains. From an intelligence peddler's point of view, today's business is a complete failure. Luo Nan shook his head slightly. I wouldn't dare. After all, Mr. Blood Demon is here as the full representative of Cards Magazine. This isn't business. It's an invitation. That's right. In the end, there's a difference between sincerity and business. Everyone else said, brother, you're a bookworm. You don't have good interpersonal skills. After talking with you today, I feel that you have great potential. Blood Demon and Luo Nan boasted and praised each other. It was as if they were already business partners. Frankly speaking, Luo Nan's thoughts of refusing right now were extremely weak. Blood Demon didn't go all out in a spurt of energy to finalize the contract. Instead, he diverted the topic a bit. I'll give you some pointers from the perspective of a senior when it comes to interpersonal skills. Blood Demon's carefree manner would probably have collapsed by now if it had been at the very beginning. But right now Luo Nan was calm and collected. He even bowed slightly, expressing his thanks in advance. Blood Demon began to talk endlessly, imparting the true scriptures. Brother, no matter how much you do research, you still need to socialize. It's true that intelligence agencies are quite developed right now, but at the level of extraordinary, social circles are very important. Many truly valuable pieces of information simply won't leak out. They will only circulate within the narrow circles. Looking at your current performance, I can tell with a glance that you've never experienced the workplace before. It seems that you really shouldn't have this experience. But perhaps you've heard your family elders say that there are always a few sources of information in their units. Among them, there are big mouths who will spill the news the moment they hear it, regardless of whether it's true or false. But there are also people like me, people who are truly well-informed and can always be a step ahead. Is this a test of information channels? No, it's friendship and trust. Luo Nan could tell that Blood Demon still cared a bit about his little doubt just now. But now that things had reached this point, there was no need to hide anything. Luo Nan spoke in passing. So the high-level information traffickers are actually selling friendship and trust? Blood Demon choked for a moment, but soon he laughed again. That's right. However, things like circles aren't maintained by relying on friendship and trust in most situations. Once you get involved in more circles, you'll naturally understand this point. You should absolutely expand your social circle. You should interact more with everyone. You should visit a few more places and develop all sorts of so-called friendships. You can even develop a friend with benefits or something. Well, after thinking about it for a while, it seems that there really isn't anyone particularly suitable among the extraordinaries. Luo Nan didn't respond at all. Hey, I'm not trying to lead you astray. It's just that you need to understand that no matter what sort of friendship it is, it's essentially an overlay of communication. As long as there's communication, we can eliminate a lot of unnecessary suspicions. We won't make strategic misjudgments. We live up to this word, right? Luo Nan did admit to this. At our level, we absolutely shouldn't meet up only when there's something going on. By the time we feel like there's something going on, the situation is basically beyond redemption. If you want to play together normally, then you should play together. That's right. Just play together. The informal kind. There's no meaning in being formal. There's no value. The more formal a situation is, the less likely it is for a large group of people to reach a consensus. So don't pay attention to auctions. Don't pay attention to the round table conference. Those are just for show. They're displayed for others to see, especially those who haven't integrated into the corresponding circles. On the contrary, you need to pay attention to them. You need to be careful of informal private chats, cocktail parties, gambling houses, and even karaoke in small private rooms. The malice and killing intent in those are the strongest. Do you want to go and experience them? Luo Nan was startled, but he soon determined that Blood Demon's attention began to shift. He turned toward the crowded streets, toward a certain special point. Chapter 10:15. As time continued to pass, the fierce sun above the small island on the equator began to display its might. A fellow like Blood Demon who was bare-chested, occupied a considerable portion of the street. It was not eye-catching no matter how one looked at it, But reality was that the two people under the umbrellas on the street were more or less the focal point of the crowd. A very important reason was that Luo Nan's previous magic show was held in the middle of the crowded street. He was completely unrestrained and attracted the interest of many people. Even though there was a long conversation afterwards, there were still quite a few people who craned their necks over, guessing when the next show would begin. Didn't he not even remove the Daoist prop box? But there was another reason, and it was completely the fault of the two people's special identities. The islands surrounding Koro Base were possibly one of the areas with the highest concentration of ability users. Many ability users possessed the identities of mercenaries or explorers. They hunted mutants in this region of the sea, provided bodyguard services, or simply did some shady business. Under such an environment, especially on the streets of the commercial port where there was a huge flow of people, it was hard to avoid people recognizing the identities of these two people. Whether it was Blood Demon or Luo Nan, they were not fated to be low-key. As for Blood Demon, he was currently paying attention to an even more special situation. This really is an era of no privacy. The vast majority of people are just data, creating a bit of value for certain people. But for special people like us, we can't just let it go like this. Portrait rights are worth a lot of money, okay? The difference between Blood Demon and the plenipotentiary representative, who thirsted for talents, was growing larger and larger. It seemed that his enthusiasm for being a teacher had come, and he had revealed his true nature a bit. Luo Nan knew that he could not deal with problems based on simple emotional likes and dislikes. Plus, this fellow wasn't particularly annoying up until now. For this reason, there was no harm in playing along. What should I do? Zhou. Blood Demon laughed heartily. So it turns out that you, my boy, can also tell jokes. Forget it. In the end, this is a problem of the same circle. Don't talk about this power or that power. In the end, it all depends on whether the circle you can influence recognizes it or not. If you recognize it, then that is true power. As he spoke, he drained the remaining fruit wine in his cup in one gulp and stood up. Let's go. Your brother will take you to broaden your horizons today. Luo Nan declined to comment, tacitly agreeing. However, at this time the box containing the secret deed was a bit of a hindrance. Blood Demon patted the suitcase and sought Luo Nan's opinion. Should I have someone send this toy up on a ship? There was no doubt that this was an action that went with the flow. Luo Nan shook his head. Blood Demon raised his eyebrows and Luo Nan waved his hand, knocking over the cup of water that he had been playing with for quite some time. The water flowed horizontally. The table was not big, and soon the thin layer of water extended to the suitcase, soaking the bottom of the suitcase. Then the box slowly sank. The bottom of the box was a hard table, but the feeling of drowsiness was undeniable. It was not an illusion but reality. It was as if the thin layer of water really led to a bottomless pool, to another space. Within a breath or two, the black suitcase had completely sunk. There was no longer any trace of its existence on the table. All that was left was a thin layer of water that almost dripped down the table. Hua! The surrounding idlers who were looking forward to the second magic trick were truly satisfied. Some people actually began to applaud in admiration. If the suitcase was still open, perhaps someone would have thrown something inside. Of course, there were people who suspected that this was not a simple magic effect. For ability users, this sort of intentional or unintentional act of breaking the boundary between the inner world and the secular world was more or less a taboo. Luo Nan had received He Yueyin and the others' reminders and education before. It was just that he was tens of thousands of miles away from his hometown, and he had been dealing with ability users all this time. He had unconsciously loosened up. However, he had done it. He really didn't care in the depths of his heart. Blood Demon didn't care at all. He began to applaud as well. This is a spatial fault. Even Ouyang Chen might not be able to do it as easily as you. Luo Nan spoke the truth. It's just a small trick. It doesn't have any practical value. President Ouyang's method is truly useful. Blood Demon continued to applaud, but he didn't continue on this topic. What I admire the most is your straightforwardness and magnanimity. You have a lofty character in your heart and you don't take advantage of others. No matter how gorgeous Luo Nan's methods were, as long as he accepted the suitcase containing the secret deed, it was tantamount to approving of this transaction. Blood Demon had already achieved his goal today. No matter what Luo Nan said, he had profited. How much were pretty words worth? Luo Nan was well aware of this. However, a transaction was like this. As long as both parties were willing, then it was a good transaction. Whether or not the value was balanced depended on each person's needs and abilities. Plus, Luo Nan had agreed to be an artist. How many paintings could he paint? How long would he paint? Should he drag out a draft or something? Weren't these key details not mentioned yet? To put it bluntly, Luo Nan was still observing. He was observing whether or not Blood Demon would put out an even more valuable bargaining chip. Let's go. We can't always let others watch us play. Today we'll go to the intelligence circle at Koro Base to take a look. Blood Demon had no intention of stopping here. He even directly indicated his next destination. Then he brought Luo Nan with him, and turned around to enter the indoor storefront of this street cafe. The crisp sound of the bell didn't have much effect in this not-so-quiet storefront. Blood Demon didn't expect a beautiful waitress to shout, "Welcome," or the like. He led Luo Nan directly toward the bar counter, but he ignored the greeting of the lady boss behind the bar counter. He simply reached over and pulled out a landline phone that had a sense of age from behind the bar counter. He picked up the receiver and pressed the hashtag key on the keyboard in passing. He spoke just like that. "Hello. Call a cab. To your house. Prepare some drinks." The call really did connect. Luo Nan could sense the other party's vague response. He could also imagine the awkward reaction of the other party. Blood Demon hung up the phone and turned around to meet Luo Nan's curious gaze. The privacy of a small circle is very strong. If you want to find and enter a new place without an appointment, of course you have to find the nearest local snake. They may be on the periphery, but they may also be a part of the circle. It mainly depends on their level. What kind of position is this? Godson position. Huh. The car's here. Godson sure is convenient. Blood Demon gestured with his hand and the two walked out of the storefront. There was already a car parked at the edge of the street cafe. It looked quite shabby. In fact, it was quite shabby. It seemed to be the traditional four-wheel drive type. Tucker is an antique collector. He likes the electric age. The problem is that he needs to rely on the information age in order to make a lot of money. The two sat in the back seat of the antique car. Blood Demon introduced Luo Nan to the person he was about to meet. So this guy is a hypocritical fellow. He clearly has an amazing father, but he needs to rely on his godfather to pass his days. He's very keen on being recognized as a godson. This is nothing. But you need to remember one thing. Blood Demon had a serious expression. We are of the same generation. You absolutely cannot let that fellow mess things up. Chapter 10:16. The antique car was well maintained and its performance was reliable. The car circled around the crowded port area for 7 or 8 minutes before Luo Nan arrived at the door of a certain circle member known as the Godson File. It was a small courtyard that wasn't particularly imposing. It was quite a distance away from the seaside, and the old-fashioned ironwork door gave off a sense of age. Blood Demon instilled a bunch of complicated interpersonal relationships into Luo Nan, making him feel a bit dizzy. In the end, Luo Nan only remembered 3 key characters. They were the 3 big shots who were directly related to the Godson File. The first was the Godson File's father, Guru Dam. He was a spiritual leader in Vatican City, one of the 2 megacities in the southern subcontinent of the Old Continent. He was indeed a mental type extraordinary, and he occupied the position of the 6 of clubs in the last edition of cards. It was reasonable to say that the Godson File should be able to do as he pleased in Vatican City with a father like this. There was no way he would come to an island in the Pacific Ocean that was tens of thousands of kilometers away. And this involved another person who lived in the same city as his father and was also of the same level as him. The fleshly type extraordinary Shakar was known as the strongest master of yoga techniques in the world. He was ranked just below Blood Demon and he was the 9 of hearts. Shakar and Guru Dam were allies, but Shakar found the son of his ally to be an eyesore. After a series of conflicts, the pitiful Godson File could only leave Vatican City and make a living thousands of kilometers away. However, he was a capable person. When he arrived at Koro Base, he somehow met another important person in his life, the 3rd big shot, Bai Hao, who lived in T-City for a long time and was an important figure in the Star Alliance Committee. He was also an extraordinary. Blood Demon's Cards magazine was purchased from him. The Godson File recognized Bai Hao as his godfather, solidifying their relationship. It was precisely because he had such a complicated and rigid character relationship background that he naturally became an indispensable functional character in certain circles. He really did have the posture of a key character. What's his name? As the antique car drove through the gate, the owner of the place was already waiting by the roadside to welcome him. Luo Nan discovered that he had forgotten the name of the person in front of him when he was overwhelmed by the names and information of the three extraordinaries. This is Talker. Fortunately, after Blood Demon alighted from the car, he did not forget to introduce himself to each other. He's not popular with Sharker, probably because his name is too similar. What a pitiful man. The Blood Demon reached out with a smile and rubbed the head of the burly man who was at least 2 meters tall. This dark-skinned brawny man had colorful tattoos all over his body and face, making him look even more ferocious. Standing there, he could be called a mafia boss, but some people would also believe that he was a bodyguard. However, in the face of the Blood Demon's special greeting method, he still bent down obediently to make it easier for the Blood Demon to extend his hand. When he raised his face again, a kind and even somewhat bashful smile could be seen on his hideous face. As for whether he was willing or not, there was no need to say more. Blood Demon introduced Luo Nan, who had gotten off the car on the other side. This is your Uncle Luo. Both sides were separated by cars and they both went silent for a moment. Talker still had that same smiling face and it looked even more brilliant than before. However, there were far too many tattoos on his face, and it looked distorted from the excessive brilliance. Luo Nan nodded to the other side. He did not expect any sincere reaction from Talker. Blood Demon was clearly like this as well. He was not polite at all and went straight to the point. You see, your Uncle Luo. As long as you have a brain that isn't made of muscle, you will know why we're here. Uncle Blood, actually, I really don't understand. Keep pretending. Keep pretending. Blood Demon tapped Luo Nan's chest and turned his head to face Luo Nan. This fellow is big and rough. One look and you can tell that he's the type to do hard work. However, he's a bit smarter. His left hand moves to his right hand and he's very slippery. That's right. Aside from being an intelligence dealer, he's also a tycoon in the logistics industry of this sea region. All sorts of goods, as long as their final destination is in the Central Pacific Ocean, will most likely pass through his hands. Blood Demon saw that Luo Nan had no intention of suddenly understanding, but he was the first to come to a realization. You can't possibly think that the valuable items at the auction will drift with the cruise ship for half a month, right? What if a storm comes? Wouldn't they all be screwed? Luo Nan finally came to a realization. Those auction items were all transported here later on? You're lacking in social experience. Of course, there wouldn't be a fellow like Wang Yu. She's just looking for trouble. Blood Demon treated Luo Nan more and more casually. He looked at Luo Nan more and more intimate. He knocked on Talker's iron-like chest in passing. Speaking of which, it's because of Wang Yu that this batch of goods will definitely come here. No matter what, he's your nephew. Wang Yu, the boyfriend of Bai Xinyan who lent the Jadeite light to serve as the main venue for the high seas auction, who influenced Yukawa Aishik's decision-making and judgment, and who played a subtle role in this matter. Luo Nan's mind had just formed a picture of interpersonal relationships, but it suddenly became several times more complicated. He was a bit stupefied. This time, Talker's mouth split open to an especially large extent. It was still a smile, but the emotions contained within were far more complex. Even with Luo Nan's acuity towards the mental plane, it was not easy for him to clearly discern Talker's emotions. In the end, this tycoon of intelligence and logistics who was like a mafia boss grinned once more. This time his words were a bit harder. Uncle Blood, don't say it like that. I nearly thought that you guys were going to rob me halfway. Fortunately, you guys came 12 hours late. The goods have already arrived on the ship. You guys should be setting up the venue right now. Blood Demon chuckled. If it wasn't for your Uncle Luo insisting on making fish soup at sea, we might have arrived last night. Luo Nan ignored the special relationship between uncle and nephew. He simply took the initiative to ask out of curiosity, "Who is Wang Yu to you?" Talker answered straightforwardly, "He's my adoptive father's grandson." Luo Nan nearly asked, "How many adoptive fathers do you have?" Arrogance. The arrogance of a technician. He wholeheartedly studies the objective world. He can't even sort out social relationships well, let alone take care of them. Was it because Luo Nan was too cooperative? Blood Demon grew more and more arrogant. He brought out the enthusiasm of a teacher. This Wang Yu can be considered a key character no matter how you look at it. Didn't you investigate his ancestry 8 generations ago? This fellow isn't that old. How is he able to do so well? Aside from having the ability, his innate capital is also a very important factor, okay? Remember, it's true that his surname is Wang. His family itself is a colossus that straddles the military, politics and business. But for us, we need to remember that his mother's surname is Bai. He's Bai Hao's grandson. Bai Hao only has one precious daughter. He takes great care of his only bloodline. Chapter 10:17. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. After he completely digested the information Blood Demon presented, he finally admitted. This was indeed an unexpected situation. Aside from being surprised by Wang Yu's complicated and rigid background, he was also surprised by Blood Demon's special effort to explain himself. Luo Nan had heard He Yuan, Zhang Yingying, Cat Eyes, Bamboo Pole and many other friends talk about Wang Yu. They all gave her a very high evaluation. Or it could be said that they were afraid of her. But in his heart, Luo Nan had never considered Wang Yu to be a core character. Most of his attention was placed on the extraordinary level. Blood Demon's attitude was more or less a reminder to Luo Nan. If it's Wang Yu. Luo Nan's gaze shifted from Blood Demon to Talker, wanting to understand him more deeply. Talker clearly misunderstood Luo Nan's intentions. He quickly averted his gaze, but he was able to avoid Luo Nan. He was unable to avoid Blood Demon. Blood Demon simply reached out and pressed Talker's scalp, forcing him to turn his face. Don't be afraid. I'm not trying to make things difficult for you. The point is there any use in making things difficult for you? Be straightforward. You should have a catalog of the auction items on hand, right? Or perhaps a delivery list. Talker's hardness was crushed by the slap on his scalp. His tattooed, dark face barely managed to maintain a stiff smile. Uncle Blood. Bai Hao retired 2 years ago. It doesn't matter if he really retired or if he's just fooling people. On the surface, he certainly doesn't care about anything. Haven't you been busy licking that nephew's gutter for the past 2 years? You might want to go and support him tonight. I really don't have the ability to be his uncle. Talker's words contained a bit of emotion. Luo Nan just didn't know if it was directed at Wang Yu, Blood Demon, or both. However, he quickly changed his tone. If it's a catalog of the auction items, I do have it on hand. It's hot outside. Let's go inside and talk. Blood Demon affectionately patted the tattooed man's butt. Wouldn't we have gone inside earlier if you said so earlier? Luo Nan didn't see Talker's expression again. Talker turned around and led them into the living room of the mansion. This room was designed to be hollow and it had a good sense of space. The lighting, stairs, cabinets, decorations and so on seemed to be made of copper and iron. Most importantly, the wiring inside and outside the room was also very conspicuous. It had a very metallic feel to it. There was no need for an air conditioner or fresh air system, and the whole room was quite cool. Sitting inside, one could almost hear the noise of the electric current flowing through the cables. Yep, the Blood Demon had said that Talker was a fan of the age of electricity. From the looks of it, it was indeed true. In terms of personality, he was a good match. Luo Nan shifted his gaze to size up Talker. The latter maintained his smile and let it slide in a relatively reasonable range. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, at least from Luo Nan's point of view. Fortunately, before they entered the house, Talker had already arranged for his men to take out the catalog of the auction items. He also sent the so-called delivery list, along with the corresponding images. His attitude of lying down and letting himself be beaten was very obvious. The Blood Demon did not torture him anymore. He simply gestured for him to do the demonstration himself. The catalog of the auction items was actually an electronic draft. All they needed was to turn on the projector. Everyone understood where the main point of the matter was. They didn't play any tricks. They directly located the relevant page. The Blood Demon had an extremely serious appearance. He even commanded, "Stop, stop, stop. It's here." In the end, Talker was not a benevolent person. He could not help but retort, "Uncle Blood, all you need to do is log into the official website of the Toyama auction house. It shouldn't be hard to buy a set, right? You've never seen it before?" "Of course I've seen it. I've studied it more than once or twice." The Blood Demon's palm changed its target. This time it was Talker's thigh. There are some details that need to be clearly explained under the eyes of a logistics tycoon like you. Only then will it be more authoritative. Luo Nan had actually seen the catalog of the auction items. Of course, from beginning to end he had only paid attention to this one page. The images on the page were naturally of the equipment and environment that had been dismantled from the 70 Format Research Institute and then reassembled. As for the text content, it was filled with the exaggerated atmosphere that was habitually created in Ban City. Demon Scientist, Living Experiment Site, The Dark Side of Deep Blue, and so on. Looking at it too much would cause both physical and psychological discomfort. Up until now, Luo Nan did not know why the Blood Demon had asked him to come here and look at this information that had been made public a long time ago. The Blood Demon used an overused phrase to express his attitude. Brother Luo, you must know that the devil is in the details. Take a look again. Look carefully. This is the only auction item related to your grandfather in this auction. Luo Nan was sharp in the end, the only one. That's right. It's practically impossible for a regular auction, especially an old brand like the Toyama Auction House, to suddenly increase the auction items. That would be too unfriendly to the bidders. Therefore they will only auction the items shown on the catalog. Then, what about the notebook you were talking about? It's right here. The Blood Demon pointed at an extremely unremarkable corner of the projection image. It was a certain operating console at the edge of the ring-shaped distributed space of equipment. There was indeed an open notebook displayed there. Luo Nan was speechless for a time. Let's not talk about whether or not he had noticed this detail before. Even if he did see it now, he would still believe that it was some sort of display element. Could it be that the Toyama auction house would restore the scene on the projection image without the slightest error during the auction? Hold on, it was hard to say. You can see it now. This notebook isn't an independent auction item. It can be said to be a part of the entire laboratory equipment system. It can also be said to be an addition to this equipment system. Do you know what this means? The Blood Demon concluded. Someone wants to play with you. Luo Nan's gaze focused on the projection image. He pursed his lips in silence. Think about it. Let's say you're in an auction right now. You're sitting in the auction seat. The auctioneer will spout lotus flowers on the stage, wantonly exaggerating the value of this set of equipment and the mysterious laboratory behind the equipment. Everyone's appetite will be whetted. The Blood Demon was like a scriptwriter. He strung together the entire plot thread in the reading session. The problem is that the equipment is dead. It has been stripped away from its original position. It doesn't even have a specific research object. In the end, many people will hesitate. They will have doubts because of you. At this time, the auctioneer will walk over here, pick up this notebook, open it, decipher it, tear it apart, and burn it. Of course, it will be more convenient to play the video related to this notebook. What will happen next? Luo Nan still didn't speak. His gaze remained fixed on the projection image. The Blood Demon grinned. I can't guess what other people's reactions will be. For the majority of the bidders at the scene, it doesn't really matter if there's one more addition or one less. What they consider more is the problem of their relationship with you. But what about you? If you prepared the corresponding funds and bargaining chips early on, then the value of the entire equipment will rise along with this notebook. Do you want it or not? Of course you want it, but do you have enough bargaining chips? Won't it be awkward if you don't have enough bargaining chips? How does it feel after the awkwardness? The Blood Demon's voice suddenly broke off. This was because Luo Nan shot him a glance. Blood Demon grasped the emotion in this glance. He laughed even more happily. Ah, I really guessed it. You never thought of going through the normal procedures. Chapter 10:18. Luo Nan remained silent amidst Blood Demon's laughter. On the other hand, Talker's eyeballs moved slightly to the side. He swept a glance at the clock on the wall. While he was calculating, Blood Demon slapped his thigh. Stop looking. Since your uncle Luo has made up his mind to walk an unusual path, you as his nephew should support him no matter what. This time Talker sucked in a breath of cold air. Uncle Blood, we need to consider this matter at length. But Blood Demon had already tossed him to the side. He gave Luo Nan a thumbs up. That's right. Compared to the new plane, this auction item is nothing. Even if you forcefully take it away, the vast majority of people here won't take the risk of starting a war with you. They won't really fight with you. This line of thought is definitely correct. Luo Nan shot him a glance and finally spoke. I didn't think that much. No. You need to think. You need to think more. You need to think more. Blood Demon's current mood was hypnotized. He began to wave his arm forcefully. It's not enough for you to think one level. You need to continue going deeper. After all, things like value may not always be considered on a rational level. Emotions and the atmosphere of the scene are very important. People who don't want to offend you won't get involved in the beginning. Who would be willing to bid against you? They won't be afraid of those who are your enemies. But what's the point of them getting their hands on it? With a demonic star like you shining high above, who would be able to restart their research in that laboratory in the wilderness? Therefore, I'm 90% certain that no matter how many twists and turns the process is, this auction item will ultimately fall into your hands. But the problem is that the most important thing is the process. It's the process of them torturing you. Luo Nan raised an eyebrow. Torturing. Isn't it torturing? You're thinking in emotional logic. Do you think that the people who will participate in the auction, the people who will oppose you, will be able to match up? Perhaps you can squash 99.9% of the people on the cruise ship like ants. But the remaining 0.1%, the few most decisive fellows, won't be able to do anything to them in a short amount of time. If you don't make a move, you'll be suffocated to the point of exploding. If you do make a move, there's not much meaning. You can threaten them and they can threaten you. Then, you would constantly lower your expectations and the other side would also gradually lower their claims. Finally, you would reach a plausible agreement. Then, you would discover that the equipment on the surface was actually related to the new plane. In this way, they have infiltrated your established position. Then, the round table conference that was interrupted a few days ago can be reconvened at any time. And you have already lost your front line. That's right, this is a complete set of negotiation tactics. They can't attack your physical body. At the moment, no one, at least the people opposite, you definitely don't want to start a fight with you at a time like this, when you have the resolve to fight to the death. But for some people who like to play tricks, destroying your psychological defenses while achieving their basic goals is also a glorious battle result. There were no fluctuations in Luo Nan's facial expression. Even if there were fluctuations, as long as Luo Nan didn't want to, Luo Nan wouldn't be able to see anything unless the Blood Demon stretched his neck all the way to Ban City. He simply said, Mr. Blood Demon, do you mean that if we don't want to do what they want, we should just ignore everything and start a war? The Blood Demon chuckled. Luo Nan laughed as well. Don't blame me for thinking too much. I can't help but think that if we really fight, it would be to your liking. This level of honesty was completely unable to pierce through the skin of the Blood Demon's face. Perhaps it had not truly pierced his thoughts. Luo Nan just smirked. You're saying that I want to see the world in chaos? Wrong. The truth is that you can't fight. You've broken through the small procedures of the auction, but there's a big rule waiting for you. It is the general principle of doing things in the inner world and even on Earth. It is a written or unwritten rule. Under normal circumstances, I will abide by it. The martial emperor will abide by it. Ouyang will abide by it. The other side will abide by it. You also need to abide by it. Do you know who made this rule? Luo Nan locked gazes with the Blood Demon. I don't think there are any rules. Oh? Haven't you noticed? Your ability, your influence in the current world under this set of rules have yet to be fully revealed. The Blood Demon extended his hand and pointed at Luo Nan. His expression was solemn, as if he was speaking at the most authoritative award ceremony. You should be a great researcher who founded a new era. Huh. From the end of last year until now, your series of theories include the cage theory that reconstructs the sea of consciousness, the configuration theory that affects the autonomous cultivation of ability users, and the super configuration theory from yesterday. These should be able to quickly change the world, but in reality, how many people in the entire world know of you? Yes, 1,246,959 people. It's 960 now. Just kidding. Luo Nan smiled in all seriousness. I think it's probably everyone in the inner world. There's also a portion of people in the military, political, and business circles. The Blood Demon grinned. He wanted to comment on this joke, but in the end he maintained the topic on the normal track. Fine. Let's say 1,240,000 people. Right now, the population of Earth will reach 10 billion. Don't you think the gap is a bit large? Luo Nan didn't mind this. With the current administrative division, even superstars We're currently discussing the problem of effective and valuable information. The blood demon interrupted Luo Nan's words. Professor, like you should be an object that all people with complete and mature thinking abilities need to know and learn from. Cough, that's too serious. No, that's not it. That's the serious part. The blood demon's fingers began to tap on the table. Each tap was more urgent than the last. Isn't it a good thing for all people on Earth who possess a normal level of intelligence to learn your configuration theory? Aside from speeding up the process of counterattacking the wilderness, will the rapidly expanding base of ability users lead to the Fourth World War? Will human society perish and Earth explode? I don't think you're the type of person who believes in inexplicable catastrophes. Yes, I'm not. Luo Nan thought of the relay station at this moment. It was the fragmented silhouette of the heavenly Yuan Empire. Although what he saw and experienced was very likely a remnant specimen of that civilization on the verge of extinction, it was undeniable that that civilization possessed a glorious and long period of peak. The current Earth's living and social environment should still be a long distance away from that civilization's peak. Chasing after that level of civilization didn't seem to be a bad thing in the foreseeable future. This line of thought was too far away. Luo Nan subconsciously shook his head. He turned his gaze to the blood demon and emphasized once more, I'm not an evolutionary catastrophist, but Mr. Blood Demon, you're certainly an anti-fence pusher. The so-called anti-fence pusher was the group of people who advocated completely opening the information barrier between the inner world and the secular world. Luo Nan's friends in Xia City were more or less of the neutral faction. In other words, they were people who were satisfied with the current state of affairs. They were the group of people who hoped that changes wouldn't be particularly intense. However, it wasn't surprising to occasionally encounter a radical like Blood Demon. This was in line with the laws of statistics. The only thing to worry about was that this person already stood at the peak of human evolution on Earth. He was a person who could truly say and do things. Blood Demon's emotions were indeed very intense, but he still focused on discussion right now. Don't you find it strange? If you take the inner world as a circle, then this circle has gradually forged several dozen to nearly 100 human-shaped nuclear bombs over the past few decades. They are spread throughout the military, government, and business world. Many of them are important core members. The world can be turned upside down at any time. At the very least, they can stand openly under the sunlight. But why is it that the conservative voice prevails? Luo Nan blinked. Love peace. Blood Demon rolled his eyes. I'm very serious, my boy. You must know that humans need to disguise themselves, but most of the time, it's just for the sake of obtaining a sense of security in a group. This has never been a problem for ability users. This is for you. I mean for extraordinaries, Yi Zichen said with a smile. Luo Nan combined his own experiences and raised an objection. For the vast majority of ability users, disguising themselves as normal people is a more reasonable and safer choice. Luo Nan looked at Talker at the side when he spoke up to this point. This person has a strength of B, right? He has electromagnetic abilities and his fleshly body is quite tough. He's extremely balanced and his foundation is solid. He can be considered a hero, but he doesn't go around bragging that he's an ability user. The corners of Talker's eyes twitched and he clenched his jaw. He instinctively felt uncomfortable being suddenly stripped. But he didn't want to participate in such a discussion at all. He only treated himself as a decorative iron pillar, standing at the side, not looking at them with evil eyes. The Blood Demon said matter-of-factly, I'm discussing the transcendent level. Do you think that the other hundreds of thousands of little guys who haven't even reached the awakened level can have any substantial impact on the strategic direction of the entire inner world? Continue. The Blood Demon spouted off his philosophy without end. Humans have the same need to obtain recognition to realize their self-worth. This need is even higher. For high-level ability users who have already satisfied their low-level needs, it should be said that this is even more enticing. So I believe that all ability users, or at least all extraordinaries, are essentially pushovers. Who doesn't want to maximize the influence of their capital? But why do these high-level ability users who play the most core role, these less than 100 extraordinaries, continue to suppress the high-level needs under the premise that the low-level needs are already satisfied? He didn't give Luo Nan a chance to answer. He directly gave the answer. This is because there are quite a few people among them who already have vested interests. Powerful social forces, social habits, social morals. Of course, there's also the powerful capital that flows through society. These people's ability advantages are realized in a timely manner, pulling them into the old system. Their present harvests have already exceeded their imaginations and pursuits of the future. They are already the drummers of the old system. Chapter 10:19. After the era of distortion, the Star Alliance Committee played an extremely beautiful maneuver. While the vast majority of people on Earth were still immersed in the destructive impact of the Third World War and were unable to extricate themselves, while the inner world was still just a budding circle, they completed this process of expelling the old and bringing in the new. They succeeded in incorporating a considerable portion of the early extraordinaries into the old system. Guys like Abner and Gongqi are more or less like this. These old things are already used to thinking according to the logic of the old system. Then they will go and influence the next group of people. As time passes, this tinkering old system becomes more and more stable. Especially with the appearance of the Deep Blue platform, its tolerance for mistakes increases. Its checks and balances become more and more powerful. Luonan had some feelings towards Gongqi and the Deep Blue platform. He subconsciously followed up. So, the current situation makes Mr. Blood Demon, a push-down faction, feel that it's very troublesome? It's getting more and more troublesome, that's right. Blood Demon was very frank and direct. It was already the end of the 80s by the time I understood this reasoning. I wanted to find some like-minded people, but because of the battle between Old Man Secret and Apollon, many people became more and more conservative. This was because they saw the possibility of serious damage to their own interests. Blood Demon expanded the topic of conversation into a broader domain. The so-called old system is just a commodity society. Of course, marginal effects must be considered. As people with vested interests, they must always calculate the investment and output ratio when considering their next investment. If the rate of return doesn't meet their expectations, they would rather continue with the old model. With this kind of standpoint, with this kind of thinking, Abner and the others believe that the old system is right and proper. But in the eyes of another group of people, including me, this is not the case at all. Having said this, Blood Demon's thumb, index finger and middle finger gently rubbed together. He made a classic gesture. At the very least, I don't think that the ultimate power of the old system can be used to bribe the checkpoint of the new generation. Luonan hooked his lips. Blood Demon caught onto this small action. He cackled in a particularly exaggerated manner. I know that you don't approve of this in your heart. You have this kind of personality. This can be considered within the scope of politics. I don't have any standpoint on this. I just want to discuss the matter as it stands. Cut. The Blood Demon interrupted him again. Brother, your way of thinking is very dangerous. The way I see it, you've made two mistakes in just one sentence and they're both fatal mistakes. First of all, everyone with basic thinking ability has a standpoint. Don't worry, I'm not going to confuse the concept. I just want to say that if you regard standpoint as a kind of domain, which is the foothold and starting point of all your power, then the political standpoint belongs to the forefront and extension of this domain. It is the most forward-looking, proactive, flexible, and aggressive. If you give up this standpoint, it is equivalent to giving up the initiative and initiative. This is an extremely fatal problem. Luonan gaped, but in the end he just shrugged helplessly. He let the slightly intoxicated teacher Blood Demon continue his speech. In any case, listening to a few more words wouldn't kill him. Why does it feel like an eye for an eye? We can refer to and learn from those politicians. How do they position themselves? They will first put the broadest value orientation at the forefront, which is the greatest common divisor of the greatest number of people's demands. Did they bring it up to fulfill such demands? Of course not. That's just the front line. When you're strong, this is the profit space that can be squeezed dry. When you're relatively weak, this is the leeway for bargaining. Of course, if you're too weak, this is the noose that the other party uses to strangle you to death. Then they will place a second layer, a slightly smaller but still a considerable group's collective demands. This will serve as the second line of defense. Some people will take this seriously and they will make full use of the power of this demand. This will help their group form a powerful rigidity, but the corresponding leeway for turning things around won't be that sufficient. Even if they obtain the corresponding results, it won't be that delicious when distributed to everyone. Therefore, the vast majority of operators will still only use this as a line of defense. It will serve as a relatively stable base of profit, and it will serve as a bargaining chip for further negotiations. They will set up a third line of defense. At this time you can roughly call it a circle. Mature fellows need to protect the demands and core interests of this circle. Comparatively speaking, this is a more economical setup. They can advance and attack, and they can retreat and defend. They don't need to take too many people into consideration, and the distribution of profit is more ample and considerable. In this kind of circle they can set up small circles. They can set up left and right, and they can jump back and forth. Even if something goes wrong with the first and second lines of defense, or even if there's a major disagreement within the circle, they can still make arrangements with relative ease. Of course, this is a field of study, an extremely profound field of study. Countless variations and calculations come from within. If one's mind is clear, one can take care of the circles, expelling the old and absorbing the new, forming a living system. That would be even more amazing. Luo Nan's pure interest in the concept of a living system was 10 times, 100 times greater than the other opinions Blood Demon spoke of. However, as Blood Demon worked hard to instill information, Luo Nan began to understand the meaning behind Blood Demon's words. Luo Nan followed along with Blood Demon's words. Is there a fourth line of defense? Blood Demon shook his head. If you shrink back any further, it won't be a line of defense but a noose. In the past, this would be the so-called lone man. But as the structure of society continues to develop, this thing practically no longer has the soil to exist. This world is flooded with information. A single person really can't support it. It's the same even if you're an extraordinary. If you retreat too deep, things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. You'll be too rigid, losing the leeway to turn around. You'll become everyone's target. This is what it means to receive the country's inauspiciousness, to receive the country's filth. Probably only a true deity is able to sit stably within. Luo Nan grunted. So you suggest? We don't need to use specific words, but we need to have a stance, especially this sort of proactive, outward expanding stance. As extraordinary, we should naturally find our own position within the third line of defense. In fact, we're already in this region. Plus, due to our special nature, the leeway to turn around is greater. The scope of influence is wider. Calculations that are extremely harsh for ordinary people can be greatly simplified here. This is an advantage that others are unable to match. And if you give up, not only will you lose your advantage, you'll abandon the frontline position, and those who are more proactive will press forward. The guy who took the initiative came over and tightened the noose. Don't you feel that it's hard to breathe right now? Chapter 10:20. Luo Nan didn't immediately respond to Blood Demon's questioning. Blood Demon was afraid that Luo Nan didn't understand. He made circles in the air with his finger. Fine. Let's put it another way. Brother, how long has it been since you took the initiative in a series of situations? Have you ever taken the initiative to ask someone? Interfere with someone? Even if that person has nothing to do with you, it's just because they don't agree with you. They don't abide by the principles you desire. Luo Nan's lips twitched. Do you think I have nothing to do? Look. This is where all the problems lie. Blood Demon slapped the table again, his voice rising even higher. Where is your position? It's right in front of your door. Where is the other person's position? It's also right in front of your door. An inch longer is an inch stronger. Your opponent is poking you in the face with a large white candle and you still have nothing to do here? Fine. If you say you have nothing to do, then you have nothing to do. Everyone has reached this position. What to do and what not to do. What to advocate and what not to advocate. Shouldn't you have clearly laid out the rules and regulations? If you don't say it, do you expect others to think for you? You feel wronged? I feel wronged. I'm doing things according to established rules. If you have any dissatisfaction, say it in advance. We're playing tricks there. We're blocking up and stabbing down. We're going back and forth according to routine. What about you? You don't say a word, but you tear open your face and stab me with a knife. Is there anyone who does things like you? Blood Demon's expression was vivid and exaggerated as usual. It amused Luo Nan so much that he laughed out loud. Blood Demon naturally laughed as well. It was just that Tacker, who was further away, felt his scalp go cold. He rubbed the top of his head, which only had a thin layer of hair. He knew that Blood Demon's performance had drawn out a considerable portion of people's characteristics. In the inner world, in the circle he was familiar with, this was typical. It was mainstream. But what was Blood Demon doing? What was he thinking by saying these words at this time and place? Before Tucker could think of anything, Luo Nan suddenly turned his gaze. The smile on Luo Nan's face had yet to fade. His eyes looked straight at Tucker. He seemed to be a bit inexperienced and ignorant. Is that so? Tucker didn't know why, but a layer of white sweat instantly appeared on his body. His tongue stiffened for a moment before he forced himself to reply, I'm not an extraordinary. It's hard to say. Regardless of the details, the Blood Demon was clearly urging Luo Nan to stir up trouble. Only a fool would declare his position at this time. But you're part of the circle. Blood Demon stabbed him in the waist without hesitation. In that instant, Tucker felt a chill seeping through his teeth. Goosebumps spread from the corner of his mouth to the back of his head and spine. But even if his entire body was frozen under the watchful eyes of the two extraordinaries, he could not miss a single word that he had to say. Tucker froze for at least 2 seconds before he spoke again. Uncle Luo, ever since he was born, he has always broken the rules. But, Tucker emphasized the twist at the end. Although it's unusual at your level, there are many similar things. It doesn't seem so, that's right. Blood Demon cheered loudly and patted Tucker's broad back. I didn't dote on you for nothing. You hit the nail on the head. What did I say? Tucker did his best to spout nonsense, but he couldn't withstand Blood Demon's godly interpretation. You need to express yourself. You need to advocate. You need to push your position as far away from your home as possible. Only when others are accustomed to your advocacy and have been beaten by your demands will it become a habit and conditioned reflex for you to push your position to the front lines. You will infiltrate the existing system with your rules. Luo Nan finally turned his gaze away from Tucker. He was a bit spellbound. He nodded slowly, but he shook his head in the next moment. I just want to talk about things as they are. That's the second mistake I just spoke of. Blood Demon hammered Tucker's back again. Tucker's eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets, but Blood Demon didn't let him go. You can ask Tucker if you don't believe me. What's his first reaction when he meets someone who talks about things as they are? Where did this idiot come from, Blood Demon overstepped his boundaries and spoke the answer for Tucker. Blood Demon explained further under Tucker's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot. Of course, this is for those incompetent little fellows. As for you, my boy, are you going to talk about things as they are? Talking about things as they are is the most terrifying, the most extreme, okay? Don't talk about the cause. Don't talk about the consequences. Don't talk about the tacit understanding that has been formed over the past few decades. Don't talk about the private and public interactions. Don't talk about the favors owed. You need to reach the most perfect state in this link. Because the perfection of this link is very likely to cause the entire situation that many people have worked so hard to design. Boom. Blood Demon raised his hand halfway. His 10 fingers spread open, making an explosive pose. This pose lasted for 3 seconds before he turned his head to ask. Do you understand? I do. Luo Nan's response wasn't discounted in the slightest. Whether it's configuration, creation, painting. It's all like this. In the superconfiguration theory, we must avoid excessive polishing of certain links. This is to avoid causing the entire system to collapse. Blood Demon hit his palm with his fist. Got it. He struck while the iron was hot. He immediately began to summarize his own theory. So in our position, if we say that we're neutral, it's just that we haven't touched or shaken our foundation. That's not detachment. It's just dullness. It's a bad habit. Don't tell me that your strength is just for show. Don't tell me that you're the same as those ordinary people who rely on strict rules and division of labor to find a place to live in the corners of society. Your strength has already radiated into the public domain. Naturally, your willpower has to follow. You've already affected countless people. Some things need to be clearly explained in the public domain in advance, especially for those extremely sensitive and petty fellows. Only by explaining things clearly can we discuss, negotiate, and deal with things early on. We can adjust our advance and retreat. If we wait until the end to speak, then there won't be any room for buffer. Life and death will be decided immediately. In everyone's eyes, who is the more extreme one? Luo Nan sank into silence once more. He stared at the auction page in the projection area. He didn't speak for a long time. Think about it, my boy. Water. Ah, yes. Tucker reacted. He hurriedly poured ice water for Blood Demon. Blood Demon drank it all in one gulp and let out a long breath. Awesome. I feel like I'm saving the world. The divine radiance didn't shine down. On the contrary, the sky darkened. A thick layer of clouds covered the scorching noon sun, causing the brightness of the living room to decrease by quite a bit. The projection area was much clearer. It reflected Luo Nan's face, reflecting a glass-like luster. Blood Demon's gaze cut across Luo Nan's face. He turned to look outside the window. He seemed to be deep in thought. And at this time Luo Nan's voice traveled over. Mr. Blood Demon, do you have a more appropriate method of handling this? Chapter 1021. Blood Demon turned his gaze back from outside the window when he heard Luo Nan's question. He asked in reply, Brother, what do you mean by appropriate handling? What standard? What reference? Blood Demon didn't give Luo Nan a chance to answer. He immediately said, according to the current rules, to put it bluntly, I'm absolutely not optimistic about you. Things have come to a head. No matter how much you speak, advocate, or protest, the foundation in front of you is weak. You won't be able to expand your front lines in time. Others will still fight at your doorstep, taking advantage of you. I believe that you are aware of this, brother. That's why you found Empress Wu and participated with her. This is tantamount to relying on the big tree that is Xia City. But there's a problem in this. Are the Iron Triangle of Xia City the type of people who have clear standpoints? The Blood Demon's words were somewhat ambiguous, but they were very clear in the context that he had been using for a long time. Ouyang's temperament is practically no different from yours. He's a pure researcher. He was bullied to no end in the past. Otherwise he wouldn't have huddled with that sickly old you for warmth. Later he became an extraordinary. Coupled with Empress Wu, he was only able to cover an acre of land in Xia City. Even when drawing boundaries and setting rules, he had to bring out the name of the psychic wave network. Technology has no standpoints to speak of. It can't be attacked and it can't be defended. Instead, it's the easiest for others to use righteousness as leverage. The more advanced it is, the more fundamental it is, the more this is the case. As Blood Demon spoke, he pinched his throat and changed his tone. You're already researching such advanced theories. You're about to push the evolution of humanity. How can you have the nerve to collect a little bit of wealth and a little bit of profit? Luo Nan's lips twitched. He was supporting Blood Demon's wonderful performance. But was it a misconception? Why did he feel like he was hit by a stray bullet? Blood Demon swept away his doubts in the next second. Yes, this is what you said. You need to cooperate in technological research. You can't build a car behind closed doors. You have such a high level of awareness. What would you do if someone used this reason to look for you? Luo Nan immediately withdrew all the expressions of the water vapor clone. Shui Yao continued with a smile. Speaking of which, the martial empress is not like this. However, she has probably stayed under Ouyang's wing for too long, so she has to cater to him. Thus, her position has become vague. Being allies with such a person is indeed very stable and reassuring, no matter if it's a favorable or unfavorable situation. However, when it comes to matters of life and death, honor and disgrace, at the very least, you and Ouyang will end up as extremists in the end. You don't lack the courage and determination to fight with all you have, but you will still be passive. The entire situation will not change fundamentally. And you, the only unorthodox, unconventional craziness that you have is actually limited under the influence of such an ally. At this point, the Blood Demon seemed to remember something. Oh, I forgot to mention that Bai Hao was one of the architects of the Star Alliance's seamless integration of the old and new systems. Wang Yu is the inheritor of his political capital. Though it's said that this kid's talent in cultivation isn't all that great, he has many years of accumulated advantages under the established rules. If you two face each other, honestly speaking, brother, you'll be at a disadvantage. Luo Nan grunted. He pondered for a moment before speaking. Mr. Blood Demon, you seem to be quite certain that I'm going to face off against Wang Yu? Shui Yao chuckled. You're all youngsters. You're going to run into each other more or less. Luo Nan didn't carefully guess how much of Shui Yao's words were a reminder and how much of it was a provocation. He didn't want to be tormented by this sort of preaching anymore. He shook his head. Since I'm asking for guidance from you, Mr. Blood Demon, it's obviously beneficial for me. It's something that can reverse the situation. Actually, I've considered a few countermeasures, and they all seem to be within the extreme category that you speak of. Of course, I don't believe that what I'm doing is wrong. Or rather, what I'm about to do is wrong. If something is wrong, then it's the people who did things before that are wrong. It's the people who still want to walk down the so-called rules that are wrong. I'm certain of this. Shui Yao was clearly very serious, but Luo Nan began to laugh as he spoke. There were some things that didn't need to be said. He wasn't so simple as to measure this world with right and wrong. However, the old system and the rules that Shui Yao spoke of were nothing more than a set pattern that had been accumulated over thousands of years of human civilization. They were merely the way that people who grasped power and resources were accustomed to doing things. Even Luo Nan, with his immature and shallow experience, was able to pry into the source. He also understood the reason why he wasn't acclimatized. Although he had been tempered time and time again since he was 10, he received the care of his aunt's family. He didn't have to worry about food or clothing. His social circle had always been stable in the middle class of the common people, far away from the hierarchy of power. He had never been accustomed to such considerations. Now that he had suddenly risen in status, his thoughts needed a period of polishing in order to keep up with the pace. Polishing my ass. Luo Nan absolutely didn't want to polish himself on this matter. The reason was very simple. How could he have the time and energy for this? This wasn't some godly secret manual. It wasn't the truth of the universe. What value was there for him to learn and follow? What was normal in the eyes of others was distorted in the depths of his eyes and vice versa. When all was said and done, Zhao Duan was still that me. It was a coordinate system that spread out with a different me as the starting point. It was misplaced. Whether it was the relatively objective structure of time and space, or the relatively subjective flood of the human heart, they could all be described in this way. From this point of view, the standpoint and standard that Blood Demon spoke of, as well as the source of conflict that was pointed out, were the insights of wisdom. There were no problems at all. Luo Nan looked at Blood Demon. Blood Demon's eyes weren't particularly large and they weren't clear enough. They were a bit muddy. This made it so that all of his expressions weren't clear enough. Perhaps it was because of this that Blood Demon's tone of voice and body language were especially bold and exaggerated. Coupled with his outstanding conversational skills, it gave people a feeling of familiarity at first sight. But when their gazes truly connected, collided, and crossed swords, this pair of eyes gave people a different kind of pressure. It was a reminder. This isn't a good thing. In the past, Luo Nan's observations stopped here. But in this moment, Luo Nan discovered that behind these muddy eyes, there was still a radiance that belonged to the pinnacle of human evolution. Luo Nan suddenly had an idea. If he wanted to paint a portrait of Blood Demon, then he probably knew where to start. Blood Demon didn't know what Luo Nan was thinking. He had led Luo Nan in such a large circle. It didn't matter if he was tactful or shrewd in the end, there would still be a moment when his true intentions were revealed. He felt that Luo Nan should have made his preparations. Since you've spoken so sincerely as your older brother, I can't hide anything. I'll give you a train of thought. Backdoor listing. Do you understand?